Hey everybody, this is Philip. Welcome to the first episode of the Not There Yet podcast. We are creating a space here that you're not going to hear any polished answers, definitely no perfect stories, but we are going to have honest conversations about life, faith, and the lessons we're learning along the way. Hope you enjoy the first episode. Thanks for joining us. Here we go.
All right, welcome to episode 1 of the Not There Yet podcast.
Welcome.
Yeah, I'm Stephanie,
I'm Philip.
and we are the hosts of this brand new podcast.
Brand new, like fresh out of the box, smells fresh and clean. And
Like a new car smell, the new podcast smell.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
They should make some kind of smell like that for your car.
New podcast
podcast smell
for your car.
I don't know what that would smell like. For me, it
Yeah.
would probably smell like coffee and,
Yeah, I should start by also saying we don't know what we're doing.
yeah.
We have very minimal experience in this kind of thing, but we're excited.
Yeah, we'd like to talk. We have experience with that.
Yeah, we've been married 20 years.
20 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
not as
for
long
us,
as some people, but
it's the longest I've been married.
yeah, same. Yeah. I mean, it's literally half my life.
Oh, yeah.
I hadn't thought about that till just
Oh,
now.
my goodness
I've been married
gracious.
half my life.
You have been married half your life.
Exactly. All right. So, so this is the Not There Yet podcast.
Yeah, so why
and-
are we calling it the Not There Yet podcast?
Yeah, because we're not there yet. That's why.
Where is there?
There, I think having figured it all out
Okay.
is what I would say is there.
Okay.
Do you agree with that?
I think I'd agree with that.
Okay. So, yeah, I think like we're still learning, we're still growing, we're still figuring things out. Really just rethinking some things too. And we'll share a little bit about that today in our intro podcast, like our background, kind of where we're coming from, what's framing the way that we're talking about certain things. But yeah, we're figuring it out along the way. And I think this point in time, I think we're both really comfortable with not having all of the answers.
Yeah, and the hope here is not to ever present any conclusive or final answers on stuff, because as the theme is, we're still learning. We haven't figured it all out yet. We have a chance to just continue to grow and learn.
Yeah.
And just share stuff and have dialogue and model that in the way that we talk.
Yeah, and I think there might be some times when we land at a conclusion for the two of us where we say, okay, everything points in this direction, and I think I'm comfortable saying I feel good about where I landed here.
Yeah.
But looking back on my life, I think that like 20 years ago when we were first married, there were some things I really thought I had figured out and I thought I had the for sure answer on, and I've rethought those things since then. Not everything, but some things.
Yeah.
So I don't feel comfortable with most things saying I have the tried and true answer and everybody should listen to what I have to say.
Yeah.
I have some things that work for me or some things I figured out.
Yeah. Yeah, and a big element of our lives is that we have a faith in Jesus. So we are Christians, and so this is, as they call it, a faith-based conversation. So a lot of the things that we talk about are going to be they're going to be colored with that as a background context. We're not here to talk about abandoning faith, but we're talking about embracing it and talking about how that influences kind of how that colors our perspective on all these different topics that we still don't know everything about, and that does include our faith. And so,
and I think there are some things about our faith, and I think we'll get to that in a second, but our backgrounds and our upbringing, which wasn't bad by any means, but I think that there were certain things that were ingrained in us from an early age that were the filter through which we saw things that maybe wasn't, we should have removed the filter for certain things to really figure it out on our own. And so kind of, I heard someone say recently, untangling some of those things. And I think like our emotions, our family life, our faith, our church context, some of that can get woven in together, and it kind of feels like a messy ball of yarn.
Yeah.
And you start kind of pulling out the different threads and figure out, okay, which of these do I need to keep and which do I need to just chop off and be done with?
I like that description, and it's interesting because we I think a lot of times when we walk into, whether it be faith or parenting or anything else, we feel like the people that we've watched that were adults when we were kids, we feel like they had it all figured out, and the more that we go through this with 3 teenagers, 1 in college, 2 in high school, I realized that my parents may not have known what they were doing either.
Yeah, because they were your age once.
They were our age once.
Yeah.
And you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And that perspective has been very powerful to acknowledge for myself and for other people that, they didn't know what they didn't know, just like I didn't know what I didn't know. And that's provided a lot of grace and insight in the way that, looking back on some things from our childhood that maybe maybe it's a different perspective. And so that's a key element of what we're
Mhm.
talking about in the podcast throughout the different topics that we
Mhm.
discuss. And so, you don't know what you don't know, and you grow and you learn, and that's part of not being there.
Mhm.
And
It's a journey.
it's part of the adventure. And so sometimes it's fun, and sometimes it's not as fun.
Yeah.
But we're here for it. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we could jump in there. So maybe you could start by talking a little bit about your
mhm.
upbringing, faith,
Yeah,
family, church context,
yeah,
things like that, and then I can share a little bit, and we can talk about where we had some similarities and
yeah,
differences.
yeah. I think it's good.
Okay.
So yeah, so I grew up in the same hometown, Burnet, Texas, small town, 5,000 people growing up. I think there might be 6,000
I was
now.
like, are they still at 5,000?
No, I think they're between 6 and 8.
Okay.
I don't know. Whatever the sign says doesn't matter. But the whole idea is that it was a small town. Most people knew each other. All of my classmates that I went to elementary school with are pretty much the people I graduated high school with. So,
6,464, in
oh,
case you were
okay.
wondering,
Thank you for
as
checking
of
that. Look
the
at you fact checking.
2023 rankings. That's what it
Okay,
says.
there we are. So less than
Yeah.
7,000.
Yeah.
Yes. So just for other context, Burnet is and not Burnett. It's Burnet, Durnit. Can't you learn
I
it?
learned that really early on.
And we have that saying on T-shirts and probably bumper stickers. And I know there's a coffee mug or two out there that has that because people mispronounce it all the
Yeah,
time.
I thought it was Burnett
Well,
when we
Burnett,
first met.
but people don't understand. Burnett has two T's on the end.
Yeah, probably. But
Burnett. But the guy who founded the town's name was David G. Burnett, or that it was named after. But he
oh,
had one T. Whatever.
yeah, doesn't
We're
matter.
It doesn't matter. So childhood family growing up, man, I was the oldest of three kids. We were spaced apart 4.5 to 5 years each. So I'm 42. My brother is going to be 38
8?
this year, and
Yeah.
then my sister is a July baby,
So
and she just turned 22.
32.
32. Oh gosh,
Wow.
the maths.
Math.
Okay, obviously not my strong suit.
Yeah.
So she just turned 32. 22 was. I'm just trying to
Yeah, but that's
unage
a good
myself.
spread between kids.
Yeah.
3 of you guys over
And
10 years.
it provided a very different dynamic than our kids have had, but
Mhm.
because our kids are pretty close together.
Yeah.
But we all had different friend groups. We all went through different seasons and phases of life as kids, and none of us really. I mean, we hung out some, but it wasn't
Mhm.
really. It was really kind of a forced hangout when we did. So the relationship there was a little bit different than your relationship with your
Mhm.
siblings and our kids' relationships with one another. And so, growing up in the same town, the same house. I mean, my parents still live in the same house that they lived in whenever I was brought home from the hospital
Mhm.
as a newborn. And
Yeah.
so they've been there a hot minute, at
Yeah.
least 42 years, a little bit
Yeah.
longer than that. But yeah, so we grew up there, Burnett, small town. Again, oldest of three,
Mhm.
and
Church? What church did
church.
you go
Oh
to? What
yeah,
kind of church?
so we grew up in a local Baptist church. So we went to the First Baptist Church of Bertram, Texas, for the majority of my up until fifth grade.
Mhm.
And then in fifth grade, we jumped to First Baptist Burnett. For context, again, Bertram is 8 miles from
Yeah,
Burnett.
it's not very far.
It's not far, so it was like a 15-minute drive
But
to
First
get there.
Baptist Burnett was
First Baptist
definitely
Burnett was where I
closer to your house.
had a lot more formational years, and it was closer to home.
And
And
probably
that's
peers from school and things
yeah,
like that.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, yeah. And all the youth group stuff, we grew up there. Dad's been a deacon as long as I can remember. I
Mhm.
remember him being ordained at First Baptist Bertram,
Really?
and yeah, and that was a neat experience to watch
Mhm.
that. I think that us kids were a little too much to handle, so mom took us for a drive on the back roads about halfway through when she realized that we weren't going to be able to sit still.
Yeah.
And so, we were young, little kids.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't even think Kirsten was born yet
Hmm.
at that point. So, but yeah, so mom grew up, mom and dad were involved in church and still are to this day.
Mhm.
Dad's still a deacon, mom still teaches Sunday school. I love getting to hear her talk about her Sunday school class and just the kids that come up, and then she's, bragging on some of these kids. And it's a lot of fun to hear that. And
Mhm.
so they're still involved
She
in
has
that.
fun with it.
Yeah. So, what about you? How about your growing up age?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was the oldest of
Mm-hmm.
3 as well,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
We were not 4.5 to 5 years apart each. We actually were all 3 of us born in a 3-year window of time. Yeah. My sister is 13 months younger than me. I
That's
was
not
born
quite
in
Irish twin.
April, and she was born the following May.
Is that Irish twin status, or is that
No, I think Irish twins, I think it's like less than a year.
less than a year? Oh,
So we
okay.
were close, but
Okay.
not quite.
Is that even like politically correct?
I don't know.
Well, we're just gonna pretend like it is and keep it in there.
I mean, I think people still say
Yeah.
it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Why? I wonder where that came from.
Don't worry, y'all were like not quite Irish twins.
No, but really close. And I mean, 1 year apart in
Yeah,
age and school and everything. And then my brother was 2 years behind her.
Mhm.
So yeah, we were really close in age. We grew up. It's funny that you lived in the same house forever,
Yeah.
and still that's where your parents are
Hmm.
now. Because we moved a lot for my dad's job.
Oh yeah.
My
Yeah.
dad had a traveling singing ministry for a season, and we
Hmm.
pulled a pop-up camper behind our Ford Taurus.
Let's go.
Yeah, like all the way across the United States. We stayed in like Colorado. We went to Montana.
Yeah.
We went like just Maryland, Indiana. We
Yeah.
went all over.
Let
So,
me interject for just a moment
uh-huh.
because I want it to be known that your dad can sing.
Yeah, he
Like
can.
the man has gifts and talents that are just I'm jealous of.
Yeah, he
Um,
has an incredible
Now
voice.
he did also have the 1990s CCM mullet. He
Yeah,
would not call it a mullet.
it was a subtle mullet.
It was the Stephen Curtis Chapman from the.
Stephen Cur oh, he
He
did.
did.
Yeah, yeah,
He had the CCM not mullet.
yeah,
But
yeah,
anyway, so your dad was great. So y'all as a
yeah.
singer, and so
Yeah, so
I'm a butt out. All right.
we traveled some, and, that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
That was an interesting context, I think, for that season of life, which I didn't know any different, but it was
Mm-hmm.
fun. So we lived in Maryland for a couple of years because of my dad's job,
Mm-hmm.
later on for something different, or before then, actually, before we traveled.
Yeah.
And then we lived in Louisiana for a little while. I grew up moving around quite a bit,
Mm-hmm.
actually, but I did have the same faith foundation that you did.
Yeah.
Mostly Baptist churches that we attended.
Yeah.
We went to several of them. Wasn't just two. We kind of we had with moving. I mean,
Yeah.
naturally, we're going to find different churches.
Yeah.
So it was pretty conservative.
Mm-hmm.
Not pretty conservative, very conservative.
Yeah.
I Were you allowed to watch the Smurfs growing up?
I did watch the Smurfs, and I really loved the theme song.
Yeah,
It was
really. I don't
yeah.
even know the Smurfs theme
Oh, it was
song.
great. It's like fa la 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 la, and it's just
Wait,
yeah,
wait.
you
Yeah,
know that.
I've heard it
Listen, fun story because
because
of camp one year when we were
no,
in student ministry.
no,
That's not
no,
why.
no. Chris Rice had that song,
Oh,
the
that's
cartoon
right.
song. Do you know what was
Yeah,
it called?
it was cartoons.
Was
Is
it
the name of
called
the song.
Cartoons?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
There was a there.
because of the cartoon song,
Yeah.
I knew it because we had one year for student camp. Our
Okay.
theme was the Smurfs. Well, Team Blues. We
Yeah.
just decided to be the
Okay.
Smurfs.
Well, the reason I wouldn't know it though is because I actually wasn't allowed
That's
to
right.
watch the Smurfs.
Yeah.
We were pretty. It was
It was
fairly
magical.
conservative and
Yeah.
in our household. So the Magic and
Mm-hmm.
Darkwing Duck. I
Oh,
remember
great show.
if I went to my cousin's house after school
Oh no.
or something, I'd be like, Darkwing Duck, let's watch it because I wasn't
You know,
really allowed
if
to
your
watch it at
parents listen to
home.
this podcast, they're gonna have questions.
I think maybe my brother watched it a time or two at home, but it was more like my mom wasn't a fan of it. Like
Oh,
it
okay.
felt
Yeah.
like really dark, and I think she was just like,
Okay.
I'd rather you not. And
Yeah.
so it was avoided
Yeah.
more than
Yeah.
anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Darkwing Duck was a great show. Had a great jingle for the theme song. I mean, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, very
yeah.
fun. So that was, I mean, that's
Yeah.
my background in a nutshell. I mean, there's so
Yeah.
much more than that. But I mean, we both were born in the 80s,
Yeah.
kids of the 90s.
Well, I mean, I still would argue that I was a kid of the '80s because like the last
Yeah.
half of the '80s.
So
that
you
I
were
was born
83,
in,
I was
83.
85.
Yeah.
So
by
yeah.
the time I realized, I mean, I was wearing the tank tops with stripes.
Yeah, I've
You
seen the
know,
pictures.
I mean, I was
You're pretty
I was
cool.
a crossover
You're
kid.
pretty
It
cool.
was
What
pretty
can I
great.
say? We're both
Yeah.
millennials.
We are
Wait, no.
Zennials.
Zennials?
Zennials?
No.
Zillennials?
Zil-
I don't
What's
know.
the crossover?
It's a Zennial or a Zillennial, one of the two. It's between Gen X and Millennials.
Yeah, I mean mostly 80s babies
Yeah.
because really, I mean,
We-
there are millennials who don't remember life before the internet,
That's
like the
true.
younger end,
Yeah.
and we're on the older end of that, and I remember
Yeah.
vividly life pre-internet.
And we've only had
I
color
remember-
TVs.
Yeah. Yeah, unlike to Gen X.
Gen X, I mean, they did.
They only had colored TVs, right?
No. I remember specifically that my grandparents,
I think
my
my
granny
mom
and
is
pops,
Gen X.
my granny and pops definitely had a black and white TV when I was a kid. I remember seeing it,
Okay.
but we only ever had a color TV in our house. They were those cabinet TVs. You know what I'm talking about?
Like with a wood box
Yeah,
around
and they had
them?
the speakers, and
Uh-huh.
they were not only an entertainment
Yeah, we
device.
had
They
one of
were
those.
they were a piece of furniture. Like they were a
Yeah,
part
and
of your
once
house.
it was in its
Yeah.
spot, it wasn't going
It
anywhere.
wouldn't go anywhere. It's heavy.
Like,
All of
yeah.
them are heavy. Two
Uh-huh.
TV. Oh, ooh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad TVs aren't like that
Yeah.
anymore.
So our childhood and our upbringing, like in our house and our families and stuff, it shaped our worldview and the way that
Mhm.
we look at things. So what are some of the things for you as far as like assumptions and your worldview, like that the conservative upbringing that you
Mhm.
had, And talk about your school too, like your
Hmm.
academics, because you guys move quite a bit. Your academics, your education as a elementary and middle school, high school was pretty different than mine.
Oh, yeah,
So
that's true.
yeah, talk about that some.
Yeah, that is a key difference. I had an experience with almost every type of education.
Yeah.
So I public school, homeschool, private school, and even a public charter school
Mm-hmm.
for a year. So really, I mean, I experienced the
Yeah.
full gamut of education opportunities.
Yeah.
And so I kind of knew,
The
and
charter school was one that was kind of go at your own pace kind of situation,
yeah,
right?
it was
Yeah. Okay.
self-paced.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of did more or less 2 years and one.
Jeez.
That year, I had come out of homeschool
Good brain.
and yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot, but I'd come out of homeschool and my family had experienced a loss, and it was just kind of threw us off
Yeah.
that year
Yeah.
prior with
Yeah.
homeschool, and so we were kind of in catch up mode that next year a
Yeah.
little bit. And my mom did a great job of educating us
Hmm.
leading up to that point. It was just
Yeah.
a little bit of a blip on the radar,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that was a really helpful year because I got to do some things a little bit more swiftly than
Hmm.
I would have in any other context.
Yeah.
So that was great. Um, yeah, so I think in terms of my worldview, obviously being sheltered, coming from that really conservative background, there were certain things that shaped how I viewed the world and
Hmm.
kind of how I started to form thoughts and feelings around certain
Yeah.
things. But I'll start with something that I feel like is good. Um, and I think that one of the good things is I don't remember the first time I went to church
Mm.
because
Yeah.
that was just a part of our life. I
Yeah.
mean, we just went, and every Sunday we were there.
Hmm.
Sunday nights, most Sunday nights.
Yeah. Sunday nights.
Yeah. Wednesday nights. I mean, we were always at church, and it was a part of our life, and it was something that we didn't ever question. We
Yeah.
went to church. We believed in God. We I knew about Jesus from an early age. I was baptized at the age of 7.
Mm.
Um, and so I think that set a really strong foundation
Yeah.
for even walking through hard times as an adult. I never doubted the presence of God,
Yeah.
but I think I did doubt at times. I don't want to say I doubted his goodness, but I really questioned like his
Yeah.
ways a
Yeah.
time or two. But it wasn't like I refused to believe in God or I'm so mad at God. I
Yeah.
just was really confused
Yeah.
at times. So, but the foundation of God being there, ever present,
Hmm.
believing that he was good,
Hmm.
even when I had questions or uncertainties
Yeah.
arose. That's been a crucial part of my life, and that is all thanks to my parents and
Hmm.
the intentional effort that they put forth to make sure that we knew about that, and that
Yeah.
was a part of our life.
Yeah.
Now, the flip side of that, I would say, now this is not all upbringing. This is
Hmm.
partially my personality.
Hmm.
I'm an Enneagram 1. So my if
Enya
you
one.
any yeah yeah. So if you're not familiar with the Enneagram, and the Enneagram 1, the key motivator for an Enneagram 1 is to be good.
Mm.
That's something that drives a lot of what I do and
Yeah.
or did. I feel like I've been able to use that as a tool to kind of have a healthier view of um, myself
Yeah.
and kind of walk through things in a healthier way.
Yeah.
But because of my personality, I'm a perfectionist.
Hmm.
I want to be good, do good. I want people to think I'm good, all of that. Combine that with what naturally occurred in the 90s. Kids in Sunday school, a lot
Hmm.
of our Sunday school lessons, and yours were probably like this too.
Hmm.
Like we would learn a lot about the Old Testament
Yeah.
and the New Testament, but everything had a moral lesson coming out of
Yeah.
it.
It was kind of the VeggieTales theology,
Yeah.
right? So VeggieTales didn't have a whole lot about
Yeah.
Jesus, but it definitely had a lot
But
about be
it
good
taught
kids.
virtues.
Yeah, it definitely taught virtues.
Yeah, and those are good things, and those align with the fruits of the Holy Spirit,
Hmm.
things like that, and we should be teaching that to our kids, and
Yeah,
that's a good
absolutely.
thing.
Yeah.
But I think I mixed that up in my brain over time to equate that to salvation. So if I
Yeah.
messed up, if I sinned, I felt like I must not really be a Christian.
Yeah.
And so for me, there were a lot of years where I just I strived. I guess it was a season of striving for me.
Hmm.
Like, I just have to do more and be more.
Yeah.
And I never felt like I was good enough. And that wasn't anybody else's expectation on
Yeah.
me. It was an expectation I placed on myself. So I think for me, and maybe that's something we can talk about one day soon
Hmm.
too, like legalism and things like that,
Yeah.
because I feel like um, that was a big part of how my worldview was shaped
Yeah.
coming out of, not coming out of the church, but
Yeah.
coming into my own as an adult and
Hmm.
trying to unravel some of
Yeah.
that. So, what about you?
Yeah, it's real similar. I mean, we because we had the same church home that we were at for the entirety of
Mm-hmm.
my pre-adult years, which I still would argue that 20 and 21 were not necessarily adult
Yeah.
behaviors by me, but
I
um,
mean, you were technically an adult,
I
but
was technically an
you
adult,
were a
but
baby.
I was definitely a baby. I mean, we kind of all are coming out
Yeah.
that age, and we've got an 18-year-old of our own, and we're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my goodness, there's no way this child is ready to be in the world. But
Yeah, she's
she
doing
does.
better than we probably did.
I think so.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were. I mean, we were real similar. Every time the doors were open to the church, we were there because mom was teaching Sunday
Mm-hmm.
school. Dad had deacon responsibilities that were a part of that. And I was kind of a menace as a child in elementary school and even
Like Dennis the Menace,
pre-elementary.
but Philip the
Yeah,
Menace.
it really was. And I had a lot of energy
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't know what to do with it. And
Mm-hmm.
usually when I did something with it, it was problematic.
Mm.
But people were still would deal with me fine. I remember my earliest church memory was when I was in First Baptist Bertram. I loved watching the organ player. I never understood why she played the organ with her feet, and I still don't completely understand it. I think that's the bass notes. Somebody will probably correct me for being wrong.
You are way more musically inclined than me, so you would know
Well,
better.
I know the keyboard, but I don't know the footboard
Oh,
on there.
okay. The
And
footboard.
she
Is that
wasn't
what it's
pumping.
called? The footboard?
Sure,
The keyboard and the
yeah,
footboard?
the foot keys. I don't
Yeah, why
know.
not?
We'll just go with that. But I went and I was looking at her feet, and I don't know what happened. Mom could probably tell us, and I
I'm
don't
gonna
even know
ask
how
your
old
mom
I
about
was.
this next time I see
She'll
her.
probably laugh and go, "Oh my gosh, it was ridiculous. He deserved it." But I think I kicked her
That wasn't very
because she didn't
nice.
let me do something, and I kicked her,
It's
and
rude.
and she smacked me, and I
Oh,
remember that. And looking back now, I'm like,
she
oh,
smacked you.
I
She
I
was like, this kid.
I deserved it. And there was probably was not a one off where I was being a nuisance as a
Mm-hmm.
child. And church back in the 80s and 90s, like this was the child of the 80s moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like village parenting was a village.
Yeah.
Like
So, yeah.
and I look back now and I'm like, I appreciate that because people weren't afraid to put me in my place as a kid when it was appropriate, right?
Yeah.
And now people get a little bit touchy about that kind of stuff when their kids acting a fool and you like kind of gently correct or any correct them at all.
Mm-hmm.
You can get in trouble for that.
Yeah, I
But
think that can go a lot of different
yeah,
directions,
it could.
but yeah.
But yeah, so growing up in the church, you go and you know the truths. You mentioned you were baptized at the age of 7.
Mm-hmm.
I came to know Jesus at the age of 8, and I was baptized on my 9th birthday, which was also Easter Sunday. So I always thought that was a neat
Yeah, that's really
a
cool.
neat kind of parallel that was there. That came out of the baptismal waters
Mm-hmm.
at the age of 9 on Easter Sunday, and so that was really neat.
I wasn't baptized on Easter Sunday, but we were baptized the same year, which is kind of cool because I was 7
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you were 9.
yeah,
And so sometime in that
yeah.
year, that was true for
1992.
both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should go. I bet they have record at,
I'm sure they
at
probably
the
do.
at my home church.
Was it at Walnut?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
It
yeah, I bet they
was.
do.
Yeah, I had to stand on a like concrete
Was it a
block,
cinder
a
block?
cinder block, yeah, in the baptistry because
Oh,
otherwise I would have drowned.
do you think they've converted that record to digital from paper?
I
You have
I
to go look
am
in the file
hesitant.
cabinet
I am
somewhere.
hesitant to think that that is true, but it might be. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah. So anyway, yeah, growing up in the church, we were always in the
Mhm.
church, and so yeah, definitely a lot of my morals and everything were shaped by the things
Mhm.
you learn in church. You learn
It
in
was
Sunday school.
formative.
They were very formative, and you kind of it was similar to you. Like a lot of those lessons were, you learn about Daniel and you learn about David and Goliath, and you learn
Mhm.
about all these different things, and it's always
The
about this
heroes of the
the heroes of the
Bible.
Bible.
Yeah.
And we used to have these great cartoons that we'd watch. When
Mhm.
they'd kick us out for children's church in the middle
Mhm.
after the first part of the sermon, we'd watch these Bible videos, Bible adventure videos.
Yeah, that was what children's church was back
That
then,
was it.
right?
Like we had
Get a
children's church. You go
snack.
down for the little
Yeah.
children's church message, and they
Uh-huh.
boot you out, kind of like we do at our
And it was a
church now.
snack and it was always a movie to watch.
So growing up in the church kind of shaped our worldview and our assumptions about things. And we talk about the VeggieTales theology again,
Mhm.
and it's all about it seemed like it was kind of about the right versus wrong, the
Mhm.
moral versus amoral or immoral or whatever you want to
Mhm.
talk about. But those things, as we grew up and got older, even in our high school years, we started to begin to have our own understandings of what faith meant.
Mhm.
And maybe we agreed with everything that was going on at home, and maybe we
Mhm.
didn't. And one of the things that I cherish and remember was Christmas. We would go to the Christmas Eve service, or
Mhm.
we'd go to the Christmas Day service, and that was one of the rituals that was big for us.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that was like that for you guys growing up, but
Uh,
um,
I don't, Yeah, I mean, we did, but it wasn't like a crucial or
Yeah,
pivotal part of our year.
yeah,
It was if we were able to do it, we would, but our church also didn't I don't think they always did a Christmas
mm,
Eve service. It probably
yeah,
depended on who the pastor was and what was
yeah.
happening.
I remember going to church on maybe it was Christmas Day and feeling like, oh yeah, we're like the super Christians because we're at
Oh,
church on Christmas Day, and like,
oh,
but that
yeah.
was the mindset, and this was not an unintentional
Yeah,
consequence
yeah.
of being at church all the time.
Okay.
Was like, we're in church all the time. The doors are open, and if we
Mhm.
didn't go, there was kind of that feeling of like, is our church attendance
I've done something wrong or
going to reflect the level of our
mhm.
salvation? Like, are we
Mm.
on? We were going to be a level 5 if we went to church
Mhm.
on Christmas
Mhm.
Day, or if we didn't go, we're knocked back to a level 4.
Mhm.
And there's that mentality that like we that faith and we didn't quite understand. At least I didn't quite understand that like church attendance wasn't like the most crucial part of my
Mhm.
faith, right?
Yeah.
And that was my parents didn't say, you have to be at church every single Sunday or
Mhm.
else you're not as good of a Christian. But it was one of those felt
Mhm.
expectations that really wasn't ever expressed. It was just a felt thing.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if it was like that for you guys.
Uh,
Um,
I think, as you were saying that, I was thinking, and I think that my family was maybe a little bit more lenient with it. We
mhm.
we were at church as frequently and as often as we really could be.
Yeah.
But you were talking about Christmas, and I was thinking about the thing that I remember from Christmas with
Hmm.
my family was we would always go, all of us cousins and our
Hmm.
my aunts and uncles, my parents, um, we would all go stay the night on Christmas
Oh
Eve
yeah.
at my grandparents'
Yeah.
house every year. That's what we did. We would all go out there. We would take our
Hmm.
sleeping bags. Or like we'd pull all the blankets out of the
Yeah.
closet, and the kids would be in one room, the playroom. We would
Hmm.
all just spread out in there, and that we all would wake up to Christmas
Yeah.
morning at my grandparents' house. That
Yeah.
was our thing. My grandmother would make like cinnamon
Hmm.
rolls in the morning, and we would all, unwrap presents together.
Yeah.
I remember getting up early Christmas morning with my cousins and going into the living room to see, what
Hmm.
gifts Santa left us under the tree, things like that. But like, I think so it makes me wonder, did we actually have a Christmas Eve service
Hmm.
and my family chose
Interesting.
to not let that be the priority, but to make
Yeah.
the family time and what we did at my grandparents' house, which
Hmm.
often we would do like we would make candy or we would
Yeah.
have a gingerbread making
Yeah.
contest Christmas Eve or whatever. It was fun, and
Hmm.
that was really those were really formative times, and I
Yeah.
think that they in some seasons went, it's okay that we don't go to church because this
Yeah.
is the formative moment for our kids here
Yeah.
together as a family.
Mhm.
And so I don't know, it makes me wonder.
Interesting. We have to ask your parents that. Now, I
Yeah.
will say this: when I got grafted into the family by
Mhm.
marriage,
Mhm.
those were some fun times. Like
Mhm.
early on, and I mean, the house was so full at Meemaw and Papa's.
Yeah,
Like there
it's
was just
like
so many
there was
people in the
nowhere to
house. It
walk
was like
or
40 people, and
yes.
there's kids laying all over the place.
Yeah, it's different now because all of
Yeah,
the cousins are grown with their
yeah,
kids and families of their
yeah.
own,
Everybody's
but
kind of all across the state and
yeah.
stuff. So
But those are still really fond
yeah,
memories.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I only got a few years of that before
Yeah.
we started having kids and we kind of alternated, which
Mhm. Board
which
games, we'd stay up late board
yes,
games,
that was
yeah.
super fun. So yeah, those are things that for us, that that we began to formulate and form our own identity and faith,
Mhm.
right? So with that, we're talking about attendance in
Mhm.
church. What are some other topics that you felt like were maybe off limits to talk?
Oh.
Because missing church was you don't do it, right?
Mhm.
And even if you're on
Mhm.
vacation, like does that count against us, or
Mhm.
did we get a pass because we were out of town and out of state?
Mhm.
Because we never felt the pressure while we were on vacation to go to church out of
We
town.
didn't really go on vacation.
Ah, okay,
So, um I don't think I really had anything like
yeah,
in mind about that.
yeah. So what were some things that were off limits for you growing up when you were that maybe were off limits to talk about, like missing church was off limits,
Mhm.
right? But like
Like topically, like things that
topically,
maybe I couldn't
yeah,
ask about
yeah,
or felt like
yeah.
uncertain about asking
Like
about.
asking your parents, "Can you watch Smurfs or Darkwing Duck?" But I mean, that's or something a little more serious.
Yeah, well,
What were
yeah,
some
I think
things?
like there were a few times when I remember vividly like working up the
Mhm.
courage to ask a question that was really difficult.
What was your process for that? Because I think you and I have talked about this before, and it
Yeah.
was real similar.
Yeah, like, okay, I'm gonna do it now. I'm gonna do it now. Okay, in my head, I'm gonna count to 3 and
You
I'm just gonna
count it down
blurt it
to
out.
yep.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Just get it out there. Yeah. Um, I think one of the biggest areas that was uncomfortable for
Mhm.
me to talk about were questions around sex, dating, things like
Yeah.
that. And dating wasn't encouraged
Mm.
for me.
Mhm.
I actually didn't date in high school.
Yeah.
Um, and I think my
Mhm.
parents weren't 100% sure how to handle that. They knew what they
Yeah.
did not want,
Yeah.
but I didn't ever I didn't have a comprehensive understanding
Yeah.
of certain things until I was older
Mhm.
because I was afraid to ask, but I also wasn't told, and it was
Yeah.
just kind of a taboo topic
Yeah.
um, in our home,
Yeah.
but also in church. I mean, we both were,
Mhm.
youth kids in the
In the
late
90s and
90s and
2000s.
early
Yep.
2000s, and so true love waits,
Woo.
purity
Yep.
culture. I think there was a lot of value there, but there were also things that we talked about it
Mhm.
in certain ways, but there were other ways that
Yeah.
you just weren't going to go there.
Mhm.
And in our home, it wasn't something that was talked about
Yeah.
much. So I think that was a key area.
How about doubts? Like doubts in faith? Was that something that
Mm,
you talked about with your family or no?
no,
Yeah. Okay.
no.
Me either.
I think too, I did not really start feeling I had some inkling of doubt maybe
Mhm.
in my teen years and maybe
Yeah.
some uncertainty, but because going back to that fear
Mhm.
based um that fear basis I had in my faith journey,
Yeah.
um I was so afraid of doubting because I was afraid
Mhm.
that if I doubted it meant I wasn't a Christian.
Yeah.
And if I were to ask a certain question, I had a feeling, and I had kind of heard conversations
Yeah.
here and there where people would be like, "Well, I don't know. You just have to trust the Bible,
Yeah.
trust God. I mean, we can't know His ways." And while all of that is
Yeah.
true, as a kid with questions, that feels very
It
scary.
feels like a cop out.
Well, yeah, that too. But also, you look
Yeah.
to the adults in your
Yeah.
life, and you're like, "Okay, these people have
Yeah.
been believers for a long time.
These are the spiritual
Yeah.
giants.
Yeah, they're teaching
They're
me
basically
day in
scholars.
and day out all of the things that I need to know
Yeah.
about life and
Yeah.
faith, and if they don't know, then that's scary. And then
Mhm.
I think I don't think I had this explicit thought, but
Mhm.
I think the trail of logic in my
Mhm.
brain would go to, if I ask this question and they don't know, then that's going to open a whole can of worms for
Oh,
me,
yeah.
and that's really scary
Yeah.
because this feels safe and comfortable
Mhm.
even if I can't answer everything,
Yeah.
but I did not want to feel any worse about my salvation
Mm.
status than I already did,
Yeah.
which was already just in limbo all the time, me
Yeah.
wondering am I really saved? Am I
Yeah.
not?
Yeah, that's tough. And I think I had a lot of the same off limits
Mhm.
topics that we just wouldn't talk about. I
Yeah.
remember the topic of sex. Like, mom asked me one time, we had visited a friend whose daughter had become a teenage mom,
Mhm.
and she was like, "Do you know how babies come about?" And I was
Mhm.
like, "Yep."
Mhm.
And there was nothing past that.
You're like, I don't want to give any
And
room for
yeah,
conversation
and so
here.
some of the background behind that too is we had just had the sex ed talk in health in
Uh,
fifth grade. I
you went
remember that.
you got to go to that?
Yeah, we
I didn't
totally
do
had
that. I
it.
was homeschooled that
Oh, it
year.
was it was
It did
so
not have
awkward.
sex ed.
I think the schools were trying, but man, it was weird. Like they had all
I'm
the
sure it was.
diagrams, and all of us boys were in the
5th grade
auditorium at Pierce Street
boys.
Elementary, and like we were all giggling like a bunch of idiots. And I'm sure the teachers were like, "Okay, this is."
They were used to it. They did it every year.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but you
Yeah.
still had to think about like, oh, that kid's going to hear about this today. Great,
Mhm.
we're going to hear about this all during class tomorrow.
Mhm.
But like there was just those conversations. They teach you some of it, and I don't remember much of it, but I know that I shut down that conversation with my parents pretty quick. Like,
Mm.
yeah, I know what happens, and that was kind of it. And
That's funny.
bless their hearts, they were like, do we pursue this? Do we just leave it? I don't know. And they just left it because I
Yeah.
just told them I knew, and so we didn't talk about it much anymore.
Mm.
And I did have girlfriends. My first girlfriend was in second grade.
Oh
I
my
remember buying a
gosh.
ring for her, at the mall at one of those little throwaway shops. Mom took me, and I guess they all thought it was cute and stuff. But like,
You're a playa.
yeah, I don't know about a player, but I was definitely love struck often as a child. But I had crushes all the time. But we just really didn't talk a whole lot
Yeah.
about that stuff. Dating was not a serious thing
Mhm.
until it came to high school,
Mhm.
and I could drive, and now all of a sudden, mom, I'm going to go do this. You kind of have these perceptions of what dating is like, and these perceptions of what relationships are like, and
You
they
had a lot
really,
of freedom in
I had,
dating.
I
It was
did.
kind of a traditional
There weren't a lot of
American
restrictions. Yeah.
American
Yeah.
traditional dating
Yeah.
situation.
There were restrictions that were in place, and there were reasonable expectations. Don't be in
Yeah.
the
I
same
mean,
place
yeah,
with
your
this girl by
parents weren't
yourself.
like, just go do whatever you
Yeah, no,
want.
they definitely weren't doing that,
Yeah.
and we definitely had some conversations, and I definitely spent a lot of time being grounded because I didn't like to follow directions all the
Mhm.
time, and 16 and 17-year-old Philip was an idiot,
Mhm.
and so there was a lot of
So I hear.
relational strife between me and my mom because of a relationship that I
Mhm.
had in high school, and then I look back and I'm like, she probably should have slapped me with her shoe, um, and she probably wanted to.
Mhm.
I remember military school being threatened at one point
Oof.
a couple of times, and they should have done it probably. But dating and stuff, those conversations were tense, and we
Mhm.
didn't really talk about it. Doubt was one of those things you mentioned a minute ago, like the I don't know from people
Mhm.
made it a little more perilous for you, and for me, I had this I'd heard people say you're just if you're doubting your faith, you just need to pray more, or you
Mhm.
don't trust God in it. And I was like, ugh, so like I'm just going to blindly believe this.
Mhm.
Later on, I was in school, in college school, in a seminary setting. One of my professors was talking about something called the doctrine of assent, ASSENT, which is where you just
Mhm.
believe what you're told because that's what you're told by
Mhm.
people that you trust.
Yeah.
And there was not
Was that
really a lot
true
of
for
space.
you looking back?
It
Yeah,
was,
same
it
for me.
was, it was because there was you trust these people and you're like, okay, well, I mean, if it's good enough for them, it should be good enough for me.
Yeah.
But
And it feels scary to go
yeah,
against what you're surrounded by
yes,
and what is the norm and
yeah.
the expected belief system.
Yeah, and so, like, that was formative for me to, like, be able to kinda step out on my own, and actually, Switchfoot has a song that says, "Doubt your doubts and
Hmm.
believe your beliefs," and that line resonated with me
Mm.
because I'm like, if I'm doubting, I need to doubt why I'm doubting, like, why am I doubting
Mhm.
this? And ask those questions and believe what you believe to be true about
Mhm.
Scripture and research that out, and so that's with faith and things like that, that's what kind of, where I
Mhm.
gravitated toward after high school.
When I think doubt is and we can maybe this is probably another
Mhm.
topic for another day, but
Yeah.
I'll just say this now. I think doubt and asking questions
Mhm.
are two very different things.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
Because if you just relating this back to like marriage
Mhm.
terms, like if you are going to pick up the keys and leave and you didn't tell me where you're going and I
Yeah.
ask a question like, "Hey, where are you going?" That's not doubting you as my husband or
Yeah.
your intent. It's just fact finding.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
need information.
Yeah.
I'm asking a question because I don't understand something or
Mhm.
I don't have the information
Yeah.
versus doubting you would be accusing you of
Yeah.
not being
You're
true
gonna go
or
cheat on
like
me because 'cause you're leaving the house without
yeah
telling me where you're going.
yeah like doubting your character like that yeah and
Yeah.
while I think we've both walked through seasons of doubt
Mhm.
and questions,
Mhm.
they don't always go hand in hand
Yeah,
and they
they're not
can be
mutually
two
exclusive
yeah they
together.
can be
Yeah.
different things,
Yeah.
and so I think that's important to note as well.
Yeah. And so that's interesting that you and I both, like, we're worlds apart at this point. You're in wherever you were in the US and
Mm-hmm.
wherever I was in Burnett, that area and stuff like that. Our childhoods
Mm.
were similar in a lot of different ways, but when we got married,
Mm-hmm.
we when we dated and we courted, it was and not like weird courting, but it was like, very
No, we
intentional dating.
yeah we were intentional.
It was we when we got married, everything kind of changed because then all of a
Mm.
sudden we're around each other all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and so the things that we thought um,
Well,
were
and I think when we did, like, just for a moment here, I
yeah,
think when we went through like premarital counseling and
hmm
we were talking about marriage,
yeah,
I haven't asked you this in a while, but I think for you and I
uh-huh.
both, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we both went into marriage thinking we both come from families, we were raised in the
Yeah,
church, mom and dad are married, have been married all this time. We're the oldest kids of three. We had similar backgrounds on the surface.
hmm
And so we kind of assumed that beneath the surface there
hmm
were
yeah.
similarities, right?
We just thought we had the same ideals
Yeah, like, "Oh,
and with
everything's
everything.
yeah, this is easy. We come from
Yeah,
the same background. We're
routines and
aligned on
rhythms.
things."
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but that wasn't entirely true.
Yeah, so in our marriage, I've heard it explained as you're bringing two different cultures
Mhm.
together, and so like I remember like we were two individual people coming
Yeah.
together, our own faith understanding, our own ideological context, and we
Mhm.
brought it together into the same space, and
And even,
so
like, parental roles, I
yeah,
think
oh
about,
yeah,
like, who like, our parents, like,
hmm
how they interacted with one another
yeah,
turned out to be a little bit different,
hmm
which meant that our expectations
yeah,
of marriage with one another
hmm
was maybe misaligned in some
yeah,
times and seasons, and we had to kind of circle back and go, okay, well, what was this like for you? What was the norm for
yeah,
you? What was the norm for you? Well, oh, that's very different.
yeah,
Now we have to figure out what's going to be the norm for us.
yeah,
And it doesn't have to reflect perfectly
hmm
in either direction. It could be a blend or
Yeah.
just what works for us.
Yeah, and for us, it was kind of a blend. It ended up being a blend
Yeah.
of this is what I grew up with, and this is effective.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I grew up with, and this is what it was effective. And
Mm-hmm.
we applied that in so many different
Yeah.
ways with parenting, but also in our marriage
Mm-hmm.
approach. But I mean, the first couple of months of marriage were tough.
Yeah.
As you hear people talk about it all the time, I don't think our marriage was ever in peril, but it was certainly like, wow, this is an adjustment
Mm-hmm.
because we had different expectations because bedtime.
Yeah.
Even as simple as
Yeah.
bedtime, right?
Yeah.
Because I worked a night shift, a late afternoon to the late night shift.
Mm-hmm.
You worked at a restaurant waiting, serving tables and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I remember vividly one of our first, real kerfuffles
Mm-hmm.
was it was a Friday night. I'd gotten off work and it was probably 1:30 in the morning or 2 o'clock in the
I remember
morning.
this.
And we're sitting in our townhouse and you're like, I'm ready to go to bed. And you start going up the stairs to the second
Just
level where the bedrooms were. And
follow me. It's bedtime.
and I'm like, this World War II documentary came on PBS, and I'm like, I think I'm going to watch this. And I think it may have been a Pearl Harbor documentary. I don't remember
Well,
exactly,
and we
but
should note 20 years ago, we
yeah.
didn't have, I think TiVo was kind of a new thing, but we didn't have
Oh no,
that.
we
We
certainly
weren't
didn't.
paying for anything
Oh
like
no, we
that.
were
It
definitely
was,
rabbit
if it was
ears.
on, we were watching it.
Yep,
And
yep.
if we
And so I
weren't,
couldn't
we were going to
pause it.
miss it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
couldn't pause it and go
Yeah.
back.
It's not like
it was
streaming.
no. And so I was like, I think I'd like to watch this documentary. I find it really interesting. And you were frustrated,
I was.
and I
Yeah.
was frustrated because you were frustrated, and I didn't understand.
Yeah.
But like your parents, when
Mm-hmm.
you grew up, were like bedtime together
Most of the time.
almost all the
The
time.
rare
Yeah,
occasion, my dad, who was kind of more of a night owl, would stay up
yeah,
later than
yeah.
my mom.
And my parents went to bed at different times. My dad had to get up super early for
Yeah.
work. He had to drive into Austin from Burnett, which is about an hour to hour and a half, depending on the day and the
Mm-hmm.
traffic. And mom was she still is doing this right now, but real estate attorney's executive assistant, basically, where she's an escrow agent. She does all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So dad would go to bed, kids would go to bed. Sometimes she'd go back to the office and finish stuff that she wasn't able to
Mm-hmm.
finish during the day because there's so much work in real
Yeah.
estate that just you get behind and you get behind. And so our bedtimes were different because our parents and the example that we had in front of us was different, and so we had to work through that,
Yeah.
and we compromised, and I went to bed. And so, but
Well, I think what we ended up uncovering too was that it was so much deeper than just going to bed at a
yeah,
different time.
yeah,
My thought was that was part of like the unifying part of marriage was
yeah,
that we were going to do
yeah,
things together at the same time, even if it
hmm
was as simple as going to sleep at the same
yeah.
time.
And I would say
So
now,
yeah.
20 years later, that probably the vast majority of the time, and over the
Mm-hmm.
20 years we've been married,
Mm-hmm.
probably about 80 to 85% of the time, we've gone to bed together at the same time.
Yeah, and
There have
that's been
been,
good for our
oh, it's been
relationship actually,
huge.
because it
Yeah,
doesn't like we don't feel like we're on different sleep
yeah.
schedules
Yeah.
and
Now,
yeah.
there was a time that I would stay up and play video games or I'd stay up and watch a
Yeah.
movie, but that was like the rare exception.
Yeah, and that I think
Um,
those times are
yeah,
fine now whenever they happen. It's
yeah.
not the
But
majority.
that was the unification of our marriage, even in year one, where
Mhm.
we were trying to figure out bedtimes and
Mhm.
figuring out even those smaller nuances throughout marriage
Yeah.
that we realize even now, 20 years later, we're in a better spot than we were 20 days in.
Mhm.
Um, but we're still not there. And so, that's part of this podcast is talking about things with marriage, things with
Mhm.
parenting, things with church, things with theology, things with
Culture. Yeah.
just cultural things. And it's going to be really fun to kind
Mhm.
of work through some of these different topics and
Yeah, I'm
everything. And
excited.
so the big thing for us right now to manage the expectations is we
Mhm.
may come to a conclusion on what we believe and what we think, but that doesn't have to be universal
Mhm.
for everyone.
Yeah.
And we may not have the answers, but the most important part of that is the dialogue that we have in
Mhm.
between, and that's been crucial for our marriage.
Yeah.
Has been 20 years where we're learning to communicate, and I would say the last 10 years or so have been much better than the first 10
Mhm.
years of marriage because we've learned to communicate more effectively, and that's a process that
Yeah.
we're learning.
And we
And
have
so,
really deep conversations,
yeah,
which
we
is
do.
part of what prompted this
Yeah.
because I think for us, we thought, well, if we're having these deep
hmm
conversations, I wonder if there are other people out there who are having these conversations
Yeah. Yeah.
and questions, or they're working through some of this as
hmm
well. Could we bring some of these conversations in a public way where we could invite others into that space?
Yeah. Yeah.
And just kind of, and I feel like there's been kind of a movement to do more of that in certain circles. But
Yeah.
I think that for us, I think that we have a lot of things in common with people who are trying to figure
hmm
out their faith and their life.
Yeah.
as adults after having a similar background
Yeah.
or even
Well,
different.
and in our culture, a lot of times it feels like to me, and it may just be me, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel like sometimes that could be very isolating. And so to feel like you're the only
Yeah.
one struggling with this
Oh,
feeling
true.
of
Yeah.
doubt or this feeling of uncertainty in a world where social media tells you this is how you should parent,
Mm-hmm.
this is how you should work,
Mm-hmm.
this is how you should approach spiritual matters and
Mm-hmm.
social matters, and you feel alone because you're the only one that doesn't have it figured out,
Mm-hmm.
allegedly.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a space for me to be able to say, I I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't be the only one because I feel like an idiot sometimes whenever I feel like I don't have the answers, but I realize more and more as I'm becoming more aware
Mm-hmm.
of more than just my little view into the world, that there are a lot of other people who are like that,
Yeah,
and
because you're human,
yeah,
and
and
it's part of
isolation is
yeah.
isolation is deafening, and
Yeah, that's true.
it is frustrating and it's difficult, and so being able to just kind of share these things that we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about feels like it's removing some of that
Mm-hmm.
isolation, at least for me, and I
Mm-hmm.
think for you as well. But we want to provide space and create
Mm-hmm.
space for curiosity and for
Mm-hmm.
dialogue and honesty, and that's the
Yeah.
big one too, is honesty and growth. You
Yeah.
know, being able to acknowledge and say, I don't have a clue, or this was not
Mm-hmm.
good and this was not helpful. So this is what we learned from that.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big things too for us is, you and I, we sometimes have a little bit of dialogue. We
Mm-hmm.
try not to have debates.
Well, because we don't always agree.
Yeah, we don't, and that's a beautiful thing
Yeah.
about marriage is sometimes you don't have to agree on some things. Like I love seafood and you don't.
Yeah.
I love sports and you're okay with them, but we have the conversations that we want to have are the ones that we think are worth having,
Yeah.
and having that dialogue is the
Because
only
there were
way to work
some
through that.
bigger things that were like,
Yeah,
oh, I don't think I fully
yeah,
align with you on that, and that is
yeah.
okay.
And a lot of that is because we don't know,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we're still learning and searching that out. The process of sanctification, right? Philippians 2:12 talks about it, and it's working out your own salvation with fear and trembling. It's a process of becoming more like Christ.
Yeah.
And that's part of what we do, not only in salvation, but also not salvation, but sanctification,
Mm-hmm.
becoming holy, but also in every other area of our lives. If we cease to grow, if we
Mm-hmm.
stop that process of growing, then we're going to become stagnant.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another part of the reason why we want to do this is
Mm-hmm.
just to work through stuff. And
Yeah.
so, different topics that we talk about, in the future, anything between social things that are going
Mm-hmm.
on, whether they're current or past, or theological
Mm-hmm.
discussions and dogma, doctrine, all that good stuff, or parenting,
Yeah.
things that we've seen that we like to do different.
And not to be divisive,
Yeah,
not
absolutely
to like you said, not to debate and walk away with a
Yeah,
clear winner, but just to go, okay, let's just talk about it.
yeah, and ask good questions.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
an
yeah.
area for me that I
Yeah.
have to improve in is stop being so definitive and
Mm-hmm.
just say I don't really know that I understand this, but here's what I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Yeah, and not make assumptions, be
Yeah,
it about scripture
yeah,
or
for sure.
about, well, my pastor 20 years ago said
Yeah,
that this is what Jesus said, so
yeah,
it's true. Well, let's not assume that that's true. Let's go to the
yeah,
word and let's see what
yeah,
actually was said.
absolutely.
And so, yeah,
Hmm.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me
I
too.
think this is going to be really
Yeah.
good. I think hopefully this
Hmm.
intro episode has given people just a glimpse of who
Yeah.
we are. And I think as we unpack topics, we'll have more
Hmm.
stories and more
Yeah.
insight into kind of what led us to form thoughts and feelings around
Yeah.
certain topics and kind of where we are now in them and how we're unpacking that.
Yeah. And what's fun too is we may even have a little feature here every now and again this day on Facebook. That sometimes
Yeah,
we look back
we
and we're
did
like,
say that would be
oh my
fun.
goodness gracious, this was who I was 15
Yeah,
years ago
yeah,
on Facebook.
I wasn't
Thank,
there yet then,
thank goodness,
especially.
thank goodness, chapter 24 of Philip is not chapter 42 of Philip,
Oof,
right?
yeah,
But yeah, so
yeah,
that's kind of what we're looking forward to. We hope
yeah,
that you guys will jump on this journey with us and feel free to ask questions. Um, yeah,
yeah. Anything you want to hear
yeah,
talked about? Anything in
yeah,
particular that you're like, what are your thoughts on this?
hmm
Have you guys wrestled through this?
yeah,
Let's go. Let's
yeah.
figure it out.
And like I tell people all the time, I'm an expert at none, but
Hmm.
I am a haver of fun. And so I love having fun. I'm not an expert at anything. That means that
You
all
tell
of this
people that all
process,
the time?
I do all the time.
It must not be around me.
No, it's not around you because you already know it to be true. You
Because
already
when I'm
know
around, you're like, I can't say that in front of her.
you already know that your husband's a doofus.
You're
And
not a doofus.
oh, honey, ask our kids; they'll tell you.
You are not. You are not. Okay, well, I'm excited. I
Yeah.
think this about wraps up episode 1.
Yep.
It's an intro. It's who we are.
Yep.
And
And we're not there yet.
No,
So
we're not.
join us.
Well, you're not there yet. So if you don't think you're there yet either, come along.
Join us on the
Let's
journey.
talk.
All right. So I'm Philip.
I'm Stephanie.
See y'all later.
All right. Bye, y'all.
That's it for today's episode of the Not There Yet podcast.
you got questions, thoughts, stories of your own, we'd love to connect with you. Shoot us an email at the following email address. And yes, it all is one word. It is thenotthereYetpodcast@gmail.com. We would really love to hear from you guys. Looking forward to connecting with you all, and we'll see you all again soon.